Hi, everybody. The realities of Zoom. Hello, my name is Andrea Moore, and I am a teaching artist and an aunt of two 10-year-old twins and others as well. But the twins, I think, are the only ones trying to figure out how to use Zoom right now by themselves. Um, I am a writer, performer, and photographer, and I'm also a nonprofit executive director. So, like many of you, I do a little bit of a lot of things. And it's an interesting time. We're all doing a lot of things right now. So I wanted to get a sense. We're going to learn more about me as we go because I'm going to give some examples about my own practice and my own approach to art making as we go. But for now, I kind of wanted to get a sense of who's here. So since there's a lot of us, rather than going through every single person, I think what I'd love to do is kind of get a sense of like jazz hands. So if you are an educator, a classroom teacher, let's see some jazz hands for our classroom teacher folks. Yes, we have some very happy jazzy classroom teachers who are trying to teach from home because, that's easy. Great. And then let's see if you are an artist, a teaching artist, let's see some dancing and jazzing. Could be that you are full-time artist, part-time artist, yes, working in schools, not working in schools. Okay, I see lots of fun jazz hands. And if you are a creative individual who maybe doesn't feel comfortable with, you're like, I'm not really an educator and I'm not necessarily an artist, or I wouldn't call myself that, but I feel like I need to be here today, then let's see your jazz hands. Yes, good. You are welcome. I am happy you're here. Thank you for being here. That's super cool. All right, and then let's just see where we are. So if you're in Colorado, let me see a Colorado dance, please. Dance for Colorado. Thank you, darlings. Hello, Colorado. And if you are not in Colorado, let's see a not in Colorado dance. Okay. If you are not in Colorado, let's see. I saw I'm gonna unmute Dr. Butin. Is that DR? You're like, that's not
Isabel, that's my husband's account. But me,
perfect.
I'm outside of Boston. I'm about 25 miles outside of Boston. And Ashland.
Right. Cool. Welcome. So glad that you're here. Thank you. Mr. Tyrone, where are you joining us from?
I'm joining you for am I off mute?
You're on. You're good. I unmuted.
Okay. I'm in New York City. I'm in Washington Heights, Manhattan, and I'm super excited to be here.
Yay, on a 5th floor walk up. You're doing
Fifth
great.
floor walk up.
Thank you. Who did I miss? Who else is not from Colorado right now joining us? You can unmute yourself if you want to say hi. Anyone else? Okay. Welcome everybody. I feel like we might as well all be all over the world because it feels like we're on the one hand that far away and also that close to each other. So again, I consider myself a social artist. So what that means is that I use art as a vehicle for social causes. So this is something that like I don't think I necessarily, when I was younger, I was just like, I like to make art. I'm a theater artist. I'm a writer. I wasn't very self-aware about the kind of art making that I do. I didn't have a lot of language for it or reflection about it. And then at some point in my 30s, in my early 30s, I went through this crisis where I was like, art is meaningless. Like, if I'm not doing something that betters the planet, then like, what's the point of art making? And I started to go through this thing where I was like, I have to be a nurse. I have to run a business that does social good. I have to do all these other things. And so I started to do that. And art kept grabbing me by the throat and dragging me back because art is how I process the world. It's what I make. It's how I think. It's how I do anything. I do things creatively, whether I want to or not. And so then I became aware of creative activism or social artistry and some of these newer ideas that have been gaining popularity in the last decade. And that really felt like me. And so what it does is it shifts the idea of art as what we do into art as how we do. What I'm interested in is people and relationships and how we come together as a human family. And how I explore that is through art. And for me, that really helped. And so basically, through all of my 30s, I was really interested in social causes and just using art to kind of help tell that story. And then this past summer, I turned 40. And just a little bit about my personal story, I kind of all of a sudden was like, I changed my mind. Art is important. And so I share that because I guess I'm like, for me, I think it's just a continuum. It's always changing. It's always evolving. Um, because I think now after a decade of working really, really, really hard in activist circles and social activism, I think I've also come to see that as also a continuum, that there's like some permanence to the desire for social change. That's a journey that I'm going to always be on. And that art is important. It does matter. Um, and so I just share you a little bit with my journey, because I think sometimes we can get a little bit too hung up in labels about, am I an artist? Am I not an artist? Blah, blah, blah. So today is going to be about doing. And by doing, hopefully we're going to get a chance to not worry. We're already being, we're all stuck at home being. So today we're going to get back into a little bit of doing. All right. I'm going to show you a graphic, and feel free to use the chat function. The chat is at the bottom of your screen if you're a new Zoomer. And I have some friends from Think 360 Arts who are helping me do the chat because it's kind of hard to manage both. Yeah, they're waving right now. The Think 360 friends are waving. So they're going to help me out with the chat if you have specific questions. But otherwise, I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to show you a graphic that really helped me. And actually, I'm going to say one other thing. If you're currently watching this on gallery view, you might consider switching to speaker view. And the reason I offer that, so depending on what kind of a laptop or what a kind of device you're using, it's going to be either in the upper right-hand corner, there's a little icon that would say speaker view or gallery view. And then if you're on an iPad, it's on the left-hand corner. But if you go to speaker view, you're just going to see me. And it might help with focus. Plus, I'm wearing makeup for the first time in the past month. So that's important. No. So, but it might just help with focus, because I know that for me, like, I'm going to look at all of you, but it's a lot, you know? So just if you want help focusing, I recommend trying speaker view. Okay. So I'm going to show you a graphic. And a lot of you may have seen this graphic before. It's making its rounds. And it's a continuum. So I'm going to pop it up on my screen. And the really exciting thing is, first, you're going to see my whole desktop. Isn't that exciting? It's so generic. Okay. We're going to do this. Okay. So this is what we're going to look at. So this is, and if your little pop-up Zoom screen is in the way, you can move it from one place to another. So just, you can kind of drag it around your screen. So this graphic, a lot of you may have seen, and I'll draw your attention over here. Who do I want to be during COVID-19? Try not to get away, go away, cancel. This really impacted me when I first saw it, because it helped identify some of the things that I was experiencing internally and some of the things that I was experiencing externally with people I knew. So if you notice first, the fear zone. So when a lot of us started beginning this process of what's happening with this global pandemic, I think a lot of us probably found ourselves beginning in this fear zone, trying to, forwarding messages, every message. And you probably can think of the people in your life who've been doing that, of like, did you read this? Did you see this? Did you get this meme? Did you whatever? Getting mad easily, spreading emotions related to fear and anger, constant complaining. And hopefully for some of us, we're not fully living in this fear zone, although this may still be a big part of our experience. Hopefully we're starting to move into some of these other zones. So there's the learning zone of starting to give up what I can't control. Stopping compulsively consuming everything that hurts me, from food to news. So I know a lot of people have limited their social media, have limited the amount of articles that they're reading every single day, have tried to put their screens down. Also getting better at identifying emotions of like, oh, the world isn't necessarily completely falling apart, but my routines are falling apart. My world has been impacted. And then moving into the growth zone where it's like, oh, okay, well, wait a minute. I have some talents and I can make those available to people who need them, right? I can keep a happy emotional state and begin to spread hope. I can look for new ways to adapt. And then finally, we're invited to move into the action zone. And there's something in the action zone, we're seeing like some big things like smash the patriarchy. And it's like, okay, I may not be able to do that by myself all alone, all in one day. But these are invitations of like, what could we be doing? We knew that we wanted to emerge from this different. Instead of the idea that we're going to return to normal and that that's what success looks like, what would it look like if we were to go through and emerge on the other side with a new reality? If we were to empower women, support farmers, feed the poor, right? Taking care of the sick. I think we're all kind of behind on that one. And then finally, boom, make art. And the reason I'm going to stop sharing this so we can go back, I can go back to seeing you. And we will send that out. I'm going to see if I can get it out to go to everybody in the meeting. And otherwise we can follow up about that in a bit. Jason, I'll invite you to think about maybe how we could capture people's info if they want access to that graphic and don't have it. You're the best. So make art is one of the things on that list. For me, I needed to hear that. I needed to see that it is okay for me to make art right now. It's not a waste of time. It's not a distraction. And it's not frivolous. I'm somebody who gets worked up about like, is something frivolous? And the reason that I want to set that tone at the beginning of this workshop is that I know what a lot of folks may have thought when they were like, oh, the wellness workshop, right? The word wellness has become an industry. It has been commodified into something that like a lot of us associate with yoga and elephants. And it's like, wellness, I think it can be a very white notion, this idea of wellness. And what I would offer, and the way that I'm thinking of wellness, to me, wellness right now is having a right-sized understanding of who I am, what I'm capable of, what I can contribute, and how I fit into a global community. That is wellness to me. If I am well or not well, it's in relationship to that idea that I am part of a global human family. I have gifts and I have needs, and I want to be participating inside of that global human family. So I say that because there are plenty of online workshops if you need a meditation or some time to just kind of like sit and go through a process in your mind, or light a candle, or have aromatherapy. There's a place for all of those things, and they all have value. When I say the word wellness, I'm thinking of it a little bit more organically, a little bit more about our living, breathing organism of ourselves and our capacity to act, to move from the fear zone into the action zone. Yes? Thumbs up or dance if you're vibing on that a little bit. Okay. And I kind of just offer that because for me, one of the things that I resist about the wellness industry, that I'll just invite us to consider because I think it's important. I think one of the challenges I have with the idea of wellness instead of the practice of being responsible for my own wellness is that a lot of people get left out. I think it can be classist, racist, ableist, right? This idea of healthy mind and body and soul. One of the things that many of you probably don't know about me is that I work in the disability community. And so the ideas of wellness are often about very ableist ideas of bodies, of what a body should look like, or how a body should behave, or that I have to make my body look a certain way in order to be well, which is actually more about kind of old school traditional ideas about strength and fitness, not necessarily about wellness. So I'm just going to invite all of us to be like, oh, okay. So wellness might be a little bit broader than we've heard it used. It may not kind of fit exactly in that category. So I'm going to just I'm just gonna invite you to like dynamite those old ideas about wellness, that we have to fit in and be perfect and eat kale and run. If you do those things, that's wonderful news. But you don't have to do those things to be well. All right. So those are some thoughts. All right. So we're gonna get paper and pen. Hopefully you brought a little bit of paper and pen. It's a little analog. We're not gonna do anything in the chat. I know, right? It's just like get a Post-it note, get your chalkboard, you could tattoo your own arm. And I'm gonna ask you some questions, and then I'm gonna invite you to just write a response. So basically, I'm gonna say a word. It is not related to art. It is not related to wellness. It is just a random word that represents a concept. And your job is you're gonna think, how do I feel about that word? Like what that word means, okay? So then you're gonna rate it on a scale that is up to you. Here's some examples. So you could do a scale of 1 to 10. Let's say that I say the word cats. Okay. Some of you love cats. Some of you hate cats. Some of you are indifferent to cats, right? So you're going to invent a scale of how you're going to respond to the word cats. So it could be on a scale of 1 to 10, I feel I'm a 2 on cats personally because I'm allergic to cats. So I'm like a little bit of a 2, maybe a 3, because sometimes they're cute if I don't have to like breathe in the air with their dander. All right. So I could do a scale of 1 to 10. I could do sounds as my scale. Maybe some of you are musicians or musically minded and you want to do a sound instead. It's like, ooh, a cat to me is a cymbal, or a cat to me is a tiny little set of drums, like the little tis 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 kind of drums. Okay. It could be a percentage. You're like, I'm like solid 65% on cats. I'm going to give cats a D. Okay. Those of you who are educators. So a couple other things just that are a little bit less school. So you could do a color. You could say, cats for me are a brown. Cats for me are a golden yellow. You could do a graph. Cats for me are an arrow shooting up. Okay. So invent one scale, but pick a scale that you're going to use for every single word. Same scale. Got it? Okay. So once you have and don't overthink it. It's not serious. You never need to use it again. Okay. It's like, just relax. Okay. Here we go. So the first one is cats. Hopefully by now you have scored how you feel about cats. Go ahead and write it down according to your scale. And the next one, and again, you're not going to overthink it, so you should be done. The next one is, I would like to know how you feel about the word moist. Moist. Please score how you feel about the word moist. Okay, next, airplanes. I wonder if that one's changed recently. Airplanes. Okay. How about routine? Routine. It's one we might feel differently about. How do you feel about routine? Okay, running. Definitely going to have some different opinions about this one. I see some heads shaking. I see some hell yes. Running. It depends. Am I being chased? Some people are like, what's the context for me running? True. Sometimes it's good to be running. All the runners are like, oh my God, you guys are missing out. Okay. And then let's do summertime. Summertime. How do you feel about summertime? I'm also just looking, good job, everyone. I'm looking in the chats now and seeing the question about repeating my definition of right size. And honestly, I don't know exactly how I said it last time, but it's basically, I always think about special gifts and special needs. So again, I work in the disability community with people with intellectual and developmental differences. So people who experience Down syndrome, autism, cerebral palsy, other differences. And one of the problems with thinking about things like strengths and weaknesses is that highly privileges people who are neurotypical and physically typical. So I'm not really interested in strengths and weaknesses. In our culture, like mainstream American culture, we're really socialized to believe that we have to increase our strengths at all costs and hide our weaknesses or eliminate them, which isn't a very human-centered practice, right? That's kind of like I don't know, that's not the experience of being a human being. It's certainly not the experience of being an artist. So if I'm always trying to increase my strengths and eliminate or hide my weaknesses, then I'm creating dissonance inside of me that rewards me for basically putting on a front and punishes me for having anything that makes me a human being. So a way to reframe this that is way more inclusive and also so much more permissive of our humanity is, instead of doing strengths, like the Strengths Finder quiz, to think of it as gifts, special gifts. The thing I like about that language for me is that the idea of a gift is that a gift comes to me, maybe through me, not necessarily even of me. And it means that I have enough to share. I have excess. And so I can afford, I have plenty for me. I have an abundance of my gift for me, and I have enough to share with you. And then instead of weaknesses, I like to think about, this is how we in our community have reframed the idea of special needs. Because like in the disability community, it's like special needs, like, is the need to socialize a special need? Probably not that special, right? So special needs to me, I'm like, I have a need for patience because I wasn't born with very much patience. And I'm not really good at waiting, and I'm not really good at like going a little bit slower for other people's paces. And so I find that I have to surround myself with people who are good at patience, who have that as their gift, because then I get to lean on that, right? Those people help me feel chill, right? So that's kind of how I think of it. I'm like, I have a need for patience, and it's something that's always been hard for me, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. And I can surround myself with people with that gift. I have a gift of confidence, and that's a need for a lot of people. So I can help people who are less confident feel more confident. So that's kind of what I like about this idea of gifts and needs. So that's what I was talking about, like health and wellness. To me, it's just understanding who I am, what I have, and what I can contribute. And that's where it's like, it's not like, oh, I'm okay, I'm perfect, I'm happy. Y'all, we're never going to all be happy. That's not wellness. Happiness isn't wellness. Happiness is a gift. And sometimes, hopefully, we all get it. But to me, that isn't wellness. Sadness might be wellness sometimes, right? Because it means that I'm having an appropriate reaction to something that's happening in my life. So to me, it's more about flow. Hope I can answer that question. Okay, going back, I can't read the chats, but I love all of you, and I trust that if somebody needs me, they'll unmute themselves. Okay, great. Okay, you've done your thing. So now we're ready to talk about the 8 dimensions of wellness. Now listen, if you Google dimensions of wellness, you're going to find 6 dimensions of wellness, 7 dimensions of wellness, 5 dimensions of wellness, 9 dimensions of wellness. There's a million. I'm going to offer you, we're going to go through a process that addresses 8. This is just one way of thinking about this. But the reason that I want to do it this way today is because we're living in an uncommonly heightened time. Right now, it's kind of like focusing light through a magnifying glass. And a whole lot of energy and information is coming through a very narrow little facet. And it is making things very bright and vivid because it is so limited. We're limited in our homes or in our small networks if we're essential workers and we're still moving in the world. We are aware all the time that things are different. So because things are heightened, I'm going to give you some parameters because as artists, at least if you're like me, I need some canyon walls. If I am going to, create the momentum of that river and fly down a canyon and make something that matters, I need the parameters. A blank, empty canvas is like, it doesn't feel fun for me. So I'm going to give you some parameters. You can also break the rules because you're all rebels because you're artists. So you're going to do it anyway. And I give you permission to break the rules, but I'm going to give you parameters so that you can break them. All right. So Okay, some of the words that I say are going to be more salient than others. Some of them you're going to be like, I haven't really thought about this. But the reason I want you to think about all 8 words that I'm going to give you is that some of you may be feeling stuck in one part of your wellness. And as we go through it, you're going to see what I mean. So there are 8 words, 8 aspects of wellness that we're going to talk about. I'm going to read them, but don't panic about writing them down because I'll repeat them in a minute. So there's physical wellness, intellectual, emotional, spiritual, environmental, financial, occupational, which we'll get back to this, but I'm going to actually shift that to vocational, and social. So obviously, if we think about those 8 aspects of wellness, it's like, oh, yeah, that there are a lot of aspects. Some of us may be feeling stuck in our emotional wellness. Like if you've been living in fear, then if I ask you, how are you feeling today? Your whole answer might be, I'm terrified, I'm scared, I can't stop crying, I'm having panic attacks, and we probably, if it's not us, we probably know people in our lives who are more in that place. And that's maybe a combination of a couple aspects of ourselves, but it's not the whole story. And if you imagine like a tripod, right? A tripod has 3 legs. You can't shove a tripod and have it fall over, right? Because it's stable. It has multiple aspects that is keeping it holding up. If you just have if a ladder is straight up off the ground and you push it, it will fall down. So the more elements of ourselves that we acknowledge and pay homage to, if we're like acknowledging these aspects of ourselves, the stronger and the more stable that we are. And we're not that easy to knock over. All right. So that's why I'm going to invite all of us to look at it more broadly. So going back to the same system that you used with cats, airplanes, routine, you're going to rate how you feel that you're doing in each of these areas. Okay. So we'll start at the top. Physical health. Physical health. So I want you to think about your physical health. This involves how you're eating, how you're moving, and it might involve how you're feeling, if you're sick, if you're well, your physical health. And think about all those things too, right? Maybe you're like, I haven't gotten off the couch. Well, are you healthy? Do you have COVID-19? If you don't, then all is not lost, right? I mean, there are a lot of other things. People are hurting from a lot of things that aren't COVID-19 that are also much more serious than COVID-19. So big picture, how are you physically? No nuance, top level. A scale of 1 to 10, a color, a sound, top level, a percentage. Nuances later. Physical. Okay? All right, intellectual wellness. Track how you're doing intellectually. This is, are you thinking? Are you learning? Are you being challenged? Are you challenging others? Okay. Emotional. How are you feeling? We have a really bad habit in this culture. Americans are notorious. And listen, depending, I travel a lot. It's a huge part of my job. It's a big part of my life and my art practice. And so one of the things that has been the gift of that is kind of having a little bit of an understanding of what American culture is compared to other cultures. Sometimes it can be hard to know the water that we swim in if we're fish, right? So if you identify as American, sometimes it can be hard to be like, I don't know what I'm like compared to other cultures. But if you've traveled some, or if you know other people from other cultures, you may have some awareness that one of the things that other people in the world know about Americans is we're very interested in ourselves. It's like a very, we're like, I want to know, how do I tick? And where there are plenty of cultures in the world who are like, what are you talking about? We don't have time to consider how I tick. Or they might be collectivist and not individualist culture. But one of the things I think is interesting about this in terms of emotional well-being is we have a habit in English speaking American culture to say, how are you? Oh, I'm sad. I'm scared. I am sad. I am scared. So when it comes to emotional well-being, I'll invite us to think of it. What would it be like if we said instead, I feel sad. I feel scared. So I am not sad. I am a lot of things. I am a lot of things. I am not only an emotion. So think about that. Like how can I take my emotional state and separate it from who I am and instead leave it in a place where it is how I feel. All right? So how I feel, emotional. Next, let's go to spiritual. Spiritual. And you can define this any way you like. For some folks, that might mean religious. But remember, religion is the frame, or like the religion might be the container. Spirituality would be the content inside the container. All right. So whatever you're putting into your container for that. What is your relationship with your higher power, your creator, the universe, your God, your gods, humanity, spirituality, the part of you that is not in you or of you and might outlast you? Here's an interesting one right now. Environmental. Environmental. And this can mean a lot of things. Some of you are probably living at home with, some of you might be living with multiple people where your environment could be very literal. It could be that you have very little space. Some of you may be living in homes with no privacy. Some of you may be isolated alone, where you have only solitude in your environment. It could be noise of screens and news and TVs. It could be pets. It could be environmental in terms of, are you able to go outside? Are you stuck in a building? Are you spending all your time outside because you're still going to work, but that environment has changed? Are you wearing personal protective equipment at your job? And how does that impact your environment? And it also might be a place to just make a couple, just like have a thought about bigger things like being able to see the mountains because pollution is lower. I have crows in the tree outside of my house and they are going crazy and they caw, caw, caw all day long. And I can't remember in the 13 years I've lived here ever having crows before, but it may just be that I never heard them. I'm not sure which one it is, right? So environmental. Financial. Financial. Also probably a powerful one for a lot of folks. There might be a lot of fear here. I invite you to separate financial fear from financial reality here. The fear around, potential fear around finances might be more in the emotional space. And financial might be, oh, actually, in reality, I'm okay, but I have fear I won't be in the future. Just an invitation to consider the reality today instead of the projection. Although, of course, that's part of it. Financial. The next one is occupational. For mostly if you Google this, you know, most things are going to talk about occupational wellness. So that's like your job. And I'll offer that for some of us, especially because there's probably a lot of people on this call who have different types of jobs. Like some of us might do one thing for work that we wouldn't necessarily consider. We might do one thing for a job that we wouldn't necessarily consider our work. And so I'm going to invite that if you want, occupational could also be vocational. And vocational, the word vocation comes from the Latin vocare, which means to call. So the literal translation of the word vocation is a calling. A calling. So you can interpret that any way. It may be that it's useful to you to actually, if your calling is different from your job, it may be interesting for you to assess both. And then finally, social. It's an interesting question, and I invite you to like really consider it on a deeper level. Instead of just like, I'm socially isolated, 0. Maybe that may be true, but also like look at what we're doing right now. We're on a call with folks from New York, from Boston, from around Colorado, and probably beyond. There are some other opportunities that are happening socially that I invite you to consider. For those of you who are living maybe with children, family members, elders, I invite you to consider, even though you may be cut off in one aspect of your social world, are you engaging on a deeper level in another aspect? Is there part of your social wellness that you have an opportunity to engage in more under these circumstances than before? So consider both when you think of social. All right, that is it. That's 8. We did that. Okay, so next, are you with me? Thumbs up if you're with me. Yes, yes, yes. Oh my God, there are 3 pages of you now. What happened? A lot of people have no videos, so I'm assuming your thumbs are up if you do not have your video engaged. Okay, um, great job. So now you have 8 aspects of your wellness, and you have some top level, kind of hilarious, semi-fake, kind of real feelings about how you're doing. All right, it's a rough sketch. You basically just rough sketched out how you're doing. And even as you're re-looking at it, take a look at what you've written down. Take a look at these 8 categories and just notice, like, do you, is there anyone that needs an adjustment? Did you feel like, I couldn't really think that through? That's fine. Make a change. But this is a rough sketch of how you're doing. And take a moment and just notice, does anything surprise you? Is there anything in there that you were like, you know what? I came into this call thinking that, like, I'm scared and I don't feel well and I'm stuck in this one part of me. But then looking at this, actually, here are 5 areas of the 8 areas where I'm like, I actually feel okay. But this one area has all my attention. Or notice if it's like, I actually came in here feeling like I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. And that's like, oh, I'm living in crisis mode. And when I actually look at this, like on any given moment, like I don't feel great in a lot of these areas. And all of it's okay, because wellness is not about having high numbers. Wellness is about, I think for me, it's just about being honest about what's happening. If I'm honest, if I can see it, and if I can self assess and just know what's happening, that means that I can meet my needs, right? If we go back to gifts and needs, what I hope this reveals for some of us is that we might have some needs. There might be aspects of our personalities that are craving some attention. Like, oh, this part of me is hurting and I need help. So if we can become aware of what part of it is, then we're a little bit more equipped to either ask for help or give it the attention that we need. It's something as simple as going on a walk or calling a friend or not calling a friend, right? If part of what our issue is that we actually have too much noise. So again, wellness, we're all doing it. This is it. So the wellness journey is about self-assessing. And now the cool thing is, and I'm going to remind us, I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to show you again. We're back to the action zone. Okay. What I want to do now is we're going to take what we've discovered and we're going to do something productive. We are going to go into the action zone because it allows us to shake things through and just keep that flow going. All right. Imagine that we're all rivers. We're moving, we're following gravity. All of our water is coming down. We have an obstacle. Our job here is to shake this obstacle loose so we can stay in flow and we can stay responsive to the people in our lives that need us and to the human family, which needs all of us because we all have a role to play. All right. So thank you. Stop share. Okay. Let me take a quick pause before I do the next step. Does anybody have any questions? And if so, you can simply unmute yourself and you can say hello and ask a question. Baby pause. Everybody's like, what is there to ask, really? Okay, let's move on. Feel free to interrupt me if you're just figuring out your mute and you're desperate to talk. All right, so now what we're going to do, I'm going to give you 25 minutes of work time, solo work time. You can turn off your video. You can turn on some tunes. You can just sit there. I'm not staring at you. I might stare at you. Most likely I'm working on my own work plan. But I'm going to give you in a minute 25 minutes of personal time where you are going to develop a work plan. And I have a document that I'm going to screen share. So it's going to be right in front of you. And you're going to see exactly what you can be writing. But what I'm going to invite you to do, we have 25 minutes is not enough time to actually probably make something that each of you is going to be excited about. But my hope is that if you only give yourself 25 minutes, you might be forced to come up with a blueprint of something that could be really, really cool. So we're going to make blueprints for a self-portrait of wellness. So whoever you actually are, not who you want to be, not on your best day, wherever you actually are, how are you doing? And the reason that I think, because there's a part of me, and I'll just be honest, there's this part of me that's always like, is it frivolous? Is this a waste of time? Is this navel gazing when there are people dying and there are things happening, and I should be doing something more productive? I should be doing more. That's something that comes up for me a lot because I get a lot of my validation from doing and not being. So to that I say, this is an invitation to do something, to basically take whatever we are feeling and experiencing and noticing and observing in our lives and put it somewhere. And if we do that, in a way that has boundaries and parameters, and we take our experiences and we put it somewhere, then it has somewhere to live. And then maybe we are now free to do something else, right? That we can be more present with family members, or work on the thing that has to be done for our organization, or clean up last year's taxes because we've been meaning to do that anyway and we need it if we want to get a a government check or whatever. Okay, so that's the invitation, is that we are going to take this energy, we are going to make something with it and put it somewhere so that then we can separate ourselves and keep moving, maybe making more art, maybe doing something that's unrelated. Okay, so a self-portrait of wellness. Now, it can be anything. So the first thing that you're going to consider in your work time is, what are your medium? What's your media that you typically work in, right? And it can be anything. There are so many options. Some of the media that some of us may work in, we may be photographers, writers, dancers, theater artists. You might be a musician. Maybe you want to write songs, right? There are a lot of different types of art that you might make. And don't worry, because I'm going to put up a thing with some suggestions if you need some help. So what medium? We're also going to write just free form. What's our vision? How could this look? Okay, it could be a song and da 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 da. And I'm going to write this thing, and basically I want it to have kind of a fast pace because I'm going on walks every single day right now, and so it's going to have a pace like a walking pace, and right. So it's just free form vision. We're going to consider what materials we need to be successful if we really want to make this. Because if we come up with a vision that it requires a bunch of materials we can't access right now, that's cool, but it might not be as fulfilling as like coming up with some things we can. And what's our time frame? Some of us may be like, okay, I can give 25 minutes to this, and then I have 3 kids. Great. So 25-minute time frame, perfect. All right, good. Take a small bite. Some people might be like, I'm gonna like take days. I'm gonna do all weekend. Good. And then finally, what's your product? We're talking about a portrait of wellness. So what would the portrait look like? Is it a song, a film, a meme? Is it serial killer bedroom wall? Those are my favorite. I love to make things that look like police evidence boards. Lots of red twine. It could be anything, right? It can be a sculpture. One of the things I love is the idea. It can be cooking. It can be baking. Can you make a cake that is a self-portrait of wellness? Please take a picture if you do make a cake. All right, so I'm going to show the work plan. Before I share my screen, look at my face. Hi, if you're still here and able to see me. When I share my screen, my face is going to go away. So I just want to do smile at you one last time, because after today, I'm not putting makeup on again for another month. So, but anyway, I'm going to give you 25 minutes. Stay close enough to your computer that when I verbally call you back in, you can come back. At 2:10 p.m., we are going to come back together as a group, and we are going to have the last 20 minutes of the class to share back some of our blueprints. So it's going to be conversation. We're going to be raising hands. And then just randomly, I'm going to invite people to share back, what did you come up with? What ideas, what work plans have you come up with? All right. So I'm going to share my screen. And as I do, what I'm going to show you. Okay. So here's what we're looking at. Now over here on the left, here's some ideas. This is by no means extensive, right? This is not the only thing going. But this is an example of what some of the media that you might want to think about using, that you could make something using these items. Down here are some materials. A lot of these are household materials. Now, some of you artists are going to have more traditional art supplies.
Andrea, sorry to interrupt. We can't see your screen.
That's strange. Hold, please. How about now?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ryan. Okay, up here on top is the media that I was just talking about. So there's just some examples of the how. How will you approach this, right? Performance, cooking, baking, sewing, fashion, puppetry, making a zine, doing graffiti, sculpture, collage, mosaic, bookmaking, lots and lots of, and there's so many more, right? Materials, just some examples, okay? Writing implements. There's different things you can write with. There are different art supplies that you can use, different tech tools. There's so many things you can do with just apps on a phone, right? But don't forget about fun things and weird things like kitchen supplies. What could you make if you said, I'm only using things I can find in my kitchen? Tinfoil, parchment paper, chopsticks, cling wrap, toothpicks, recyclables, food products, right? Makeup supplies, costume supplies, fabric and material, natural materials, right? What if you go outside? Are there things that you can collect? Urban materials, if you live in a city without a lot of natural, green spaces. And then miscellanea, broken jewelry, junk from the garage, bric-a-brac, all those words that sound like that, things in a junk drawer. All right. I put some weird ones here. Family members as the cast for a show. Can you convince your family to do something like this? Can you dress up your pet dog as a fashion model and showcase your portrait of wellness? And then finally, on the right-hand side, here's an example of a work plan. And this is just something to consider. So I'm going to give you until 2:10 now to work. When we're finished, try and come back with this idea of a work plan complete. So I want to know, what will be your medium or media? What's your vision? Keep it loose. Read mine if you need an example of how rough it can be. And look at how I go from like one idea, and by the end of it, I'm at another idea. So I start here with one idea, and by the end, I'm on another idea. Materials, time frame, and product. And I will talk with all of you at 2:10 Mountain Standard Time. Goodbye. Okay. So Michelle was just asking, for folks who came in a little late, they might be wondering how the first activity related, about asking around, how do you feel about cats, the word moist, airplanes, blah, blah, blah. And for me, the idea of that is to kind of come into territory that is low stakes and practice just having snap reactions to how we feel about things before we worry about ourselves. I like to do a little prep before I ask folks to start self-assessing. I like to kind of get in the flow a little bit of like, I know how I feel about things. I have the answer to that question. I know how I feel about cats. I know how I feel about broccoli. I know how I feel about, that my opinions are accessible, because I think once we start asking ourselves how we're doing, sometimes it can be, people have all kinds of different reactions. Sometimes people panic, or just, immediately complicate it or whatever. So it's just a little bit of that flow of practicing using, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, I feel like an 8 about cats. And then when I'm like, so how are you spiritually? It's like, I don't know, I meditated today, I'm a 9. So just to kind of like get that flow and not take it too seriously. I don't even know where Michelle is. There you are. Is that, is that good, Michelle? I can see it. Yeah. Okay. Okay, perfect. I am going to not be able to follow the chat and talk at the same time, but one of the things that I did notice, and it's like 2:09, so I'm going to just sort of roll back into being back. But I did notice in the chat, once I had a chance to like look at it and then look at all of you, that there are a lot of familiar faces here. So it's really nice to see so many of you that I've worked with in the past, or just that I've seen on the roster for Think 360 and other things. This to me has kind of been the unexpected benefit of the global pandemic. I don't know if we can call it a benefit, but just like it's given me something in my heart to be able to connect with people in really unique ways that I never have before, and may never connect with people this way again in my lifetime. In our lifetimes, we may never, hopefully never, see something like this again. And for me, I've been trying to kind of stop myself and say that out loud, you know, that this is a lot of things and it's a lot of unpleasant things, but it is not wholly unpleasant. Um, and for me, that's been an important reality to state. So, you know, that's just also something that hopefully this will give us a little bit of awareness around that. It's 2:10. We have 20 minutes until we are formally finished. Again, I'll invite folks. Jason has posted it a few times in the chat, but I know it can get buried kind of quickly. So I'll invite folks to please fill out the evaluation, or at least grab the link and hold on to it until we're finished. It's in the chat feature. And the reason that you might do that, first of all, for those of you who don't run a nonprofit like myself or the folks at Think 360, evaluation is a huge part of our funding. So help us continue to have those funding streams in place by doing the evaluation. But also it helps us make sure that we're not gonna waste your time. We wanna be giving folks, since we have a lot of like things trying to get our attention right now, the news, Zoom, family, our immediate realities, we Think 360, I know, really is trying to make sure that they're only giving out content that really feeds us. And so the evaluation will help us know if this did that for you. Also, it will give us your email if you want us to send you the materials, which we will happily do. Okay, I would like to hear from a couple folks so far, and let me just do a quick, go ahead and post to everybody, if you don't mind, from now on. Here's who I know so far. I know I'm gonna hear from Severin. I know I'm gonna hear from Jennifer Olson. I wanna see, there are probably some other people who said that they're interested. Zing, zing, zing. Hi, Julia. Oh my gosh, so cute. Okay, the twins want to share. Fantastic. We're going to go to Severin first. And so, Severin, I'll have you unmute yourself.
Great.
And during this portion, folks, what we're going to do, if you want, again, you can go back to gallery view if you want to see everyone, or stay with speaker view and you can really listen to the person who's sharing with us. But Severin, I'll have you just give, and so a lot of people can share. Let's just try and do a very high level overview of what are you thinking, and you know, give us like the 2-minute version, if possible, of what came to you in this process.
Great. So the first thing that happened was that when you asked us to use our own scale, I'm like sitting here right in front of my plants that I have in the window, so that felt like a good scale.
I love that scale. Yes.
So I, you know, some of my aspect, the way I related to some of my aspects were like, like intellectual was a jade plant. It was like a super strong, sturdy plant that can live even when it like is denied water for weeks on end.
Okay.
So that, you know, I had like my occupational vocational wellness was like a mom flower in bloom. So that was sort of, that gave me the idea for a work plan. I've been really interested in working with paper recently. I have a project that I'm about to do that is going to be all about paper, so my mind is sort of there. So I decided to create a piece that would probably hang on a wall.
Okay.
It's like my own wellness garden. So it would have, it's like it, and it's like 3-dimensional. So it's not just paper. It would be made from dirt and thread and cut paper and maybe some straws and some food stuff like sunflower seeds and or beads. I happen to have a whole drawer of art supplies that I love to rummage through, and it's full of weird things that sort of inspire me to be creative. So I'll pull from that, and then also from like whatever random things I decide to pull up.
Exactly.
The end piece will be something in the realm of like 22 by 14, 24 by 18 paper piece of art. I might use canvas. I don't know. I haven't completely decided what I'm going to build it on, but that's the idea, is to build a paper multimedia art piece that it represents my own wellness garden.
Perfect. Perfect example. Great start. Thank you, Severin. Also, just to give folks some context, so Severin is a friend of mine. Severin and I went to theater school together. So just a reminder that you are not trapped in whatever you think, like, I only make this type of art, right? That we are all, the idea of being an artist to me is artist with a capital A. We are allowed to do whatever we want. And we're allowed to hate that and then do something else and then burn it and then be like, so what I made was, you know, a bonfire and that was my art. And I threw away everything that I, you know, whatever. Have some fun with it. I love the idea of I saw a lot of people in the chat saying, and then also just like nodding of like this idea of using plants as the scale. That's refreshing too, right? Okay, let's hear from Jennifer. I'll leave it to you. Like, go ahead and unmute yourself, Jennifer Olson. I know a lot of you are so cute. You're like writing me like, I can share, but I don't have to share. We're just gonna try and hear from as many of us as possible because I think part of the advantage here is the variety, because every time somebody else shares their idea, I get a new idea, right? And your idea could change. So Jennifer, just hit us with, just like, give us a little overview of what you were thinking.
Sure. So I immediately kind of thought of assemblage, especially with the suggestion of going out to the garage and finding garage junk. And also I've found a lot of solace in daily walks with my dog. So I thought, what if I collected natural materials during my walks, like very intentionally, and let them accumulate over the week and then pull it in with some other natural or other materials from the junk drawer in the garage. But the overall idea is that just acceptance of how things are right now, that it is so imperfect and it's so not what we planned and it's so out of our control. And there's a lot of beauty in that. Mm-hmm. And I realized if I didn't create something to help me see that beauty, to like, you know, externalize it and to see it there, that I might miss some of it. Yep. So, and I also saw a video yesterday of these Russian dancers who were like stuck in their apartment and they're like making, you know, they're like bourreeing over to the oven to put the roast in the oven. And I thought if I could somehow incorporate movement in making this assemblage sculpture, that could be something to help like bring focus and like real intentionality to every aspect of it. Yeah. But also to kind of let it be as out of control as everything is right now.
Exactly. I also like this idea, you know, you're saying about dancing over to open the oven. It's this idea of how we respond, not just what we create. That there is a creativity in how we engage, separate from a product. There's a lot of pressure in art making to have everything into a product. And even that work plan does ask at the end, what does this ultimately look like? The idea for that, though, is not that it has to be finished, but that it should get to a point where you can put it down. And the reason is because, again, we are in a global pandemic and we are in a human crisis. And to me, it's important to keep things in scale. That while this can provide me some direction and some solace, it is also important at some point to put it down and to finish that thing so that I can be responsive when other things need my attention, right? There are a lot of ways to contribute right now. We're being asked to do all kinds of different things. And for me, that's also part of my health and wellness, is being able to be of service and be responsive, and not just go down a rabbit hole as well. So I like that idea of like, at some point, call it done too. Great, I wanna hear from Sarah Slater. If you wanna unmute yourself, Sarah, we'll hear a little bit about what you've got cooking.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Sarah.
Let's see. So I was initially thinking I would do collage because that's a medium I've been liking lately, and some wellness areas I kind of want to focus on more, or just movement and just reminding myself to move more throughout the day and not just like stare at my computer the whole time. And just like I've been trying to like focus on reading more about looking at our situation creatively and versus total doom and gloom. And that kind of led me to the idea of like planting seeds for the future. So I ended up deciding that I need to make a garden plan. And I have a tiny community garden plot, and I haven't had a lot of time to work on it, but I'm just going to take some paper and pen and seeds and try to trade some seeds. I have a lot if anyone wants to trade. And then that will be my final product eventually. Then hopefully I'll be able to have some food this summer to share with people in my community, including you guys.
We'll just give it a second for her to come back. But while I have you all, again, thank you all for joining us. Please, please, please fill out that evaluation, that Google form. As Andrea said, not only will it help us improve, but it'll also help us stay connected to you all with your email addresses. Another option, folks, when you finish this project, and again, I know Andrea said we have different timelines based on where we're at, feel free to email me a photo, a video, some way to capture that finished piece, and then I can send it and share it with the entire group as well. So we'd love to see some of those projects. Not having Andrea's chat, was there anyone else that would like to share? I believe in the chat I saw Donna, you had said you would share. Ryan Moore, you said you would share. Does someone want to Cricket, I see you raising your hand. You want to share. Does someone want to start? Donna, would you like to unmute yourself and start? I think I just unmuted you.
Thank you. Hi. And thanks for putting this on. This has been really helpful and inspirational. So I have been running 2 projects simultaneously. One of my, artist work of my silhouette project, and I'm actually launching it with social distancing. And then another kind of creative for me project, which are these 2 Baroque chandeliers that I acquired. And I haven't really known what to do with them. So planning this out has been helpful. And I'm weaving these 2 chandeliers from birth to a life-changing event, and then the life-changing event to death. And so this gave me a lot of clarity on how I want to approach these big kind of 3 foot tall chandeliers. This session has been helpful with me getting clear about my path with these, and I've been really stuck. So I will be glad to implement some of these ideas. And it's hard for me to explain it right now because I didn't take a picture of it and post it of the 2 of them, but I will be sharing pictures, and that's what I wanted to say.
Is part of, hello everybody, I'm back. Is part of the plan for the chandeliers to send one to my house? Because that could also be an option, just something to consider. No, that sounds super exciting.
Yeah.
Like, did someone say Baroque chandeliers?
That's what these are. I'm very
cool.
Happy to have them. And they're actually, I ended up getting these at Resource in Boulder, and they're actual real crystals embedded. So, awesome. So this was really helpful to come up with the plan and really focus on that. I kind of struggled. Do I want to do the real social work, artist work with this other project that I'll be sharing with you guys, or do I go deeper with my own creative process? So you kind of gave me permission, Andrea.
This is it. We got to break the rules too, right? I mean, and that's where sometimes it's just like, so theoretically I'm writing a book. And I say that because I'm like, yes, I've written some of the book and I intend to write more of the book. And I joined NaNoWriMo, whatever the heck, because I'm supposed to be writing every day. I don't write every day. So I don't know, what does it mean to be, I'm writing a book? And I go through all of these like mental acrobats about it as an artist. And so sometimes a little side project is nice because it is respite from something else that we're going to continue working on. And sometimes maybe it's just like going off the highway on an exit ramp just to re-enter the highway on an entrance ramp, right? It's just like a new way of coming at it. We don't need to make something new. It's just a fresh way of thinking about something that is already on our minds. So that's good too. I want to check with the twins. my twins, you want to unmute yourselves? And I think you said you were going to screen share.
Yeah.
You want to give that a try?
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead.
It says host is disabled participant screen
Oh, okay.
sharing.
So that might be a little tricky because of our settings. Can you, I know it's as not maybe as cool, but can you share with us, just tell us for about a minute about what you're thinking?
Like over like past month or something with COVID, I've really liked to spend my time listening to music and enjoying nature.
Okay.
And so I made a thing on this app that I have on my Chromebook called Soundtrap, and I make music too. And that's what I wanted to share. So Bella's up next.
Okay, great. Thank you, Michael. Belle, what are you thinking?
So what I was thinking is, so when you said that criminal evidence wall or something,
Yeah.
I really like that. And but instead of having like a criminal evidence wall, I have a kind of like that, but it's places where it's like places where all my happiness wants to go and where it went already. And so right now I have kind of some of it planned out, like some of it's Paris where I want to go, New York City Pennsylvania to Matt Griffin's wedding. That's where I went. Mount Rushmore is where I went. I want to go to Australia. And so then it's like my happiness is kind of like also waiting for me to go to all those places, but it's also letting me know that my happiness was in all the places that I went.
Oh, knockout. Okay, awesome. Belle, really exciting. One of the things that I'm going to mute you just because I'm going to keep sharing about this. That's a great idea. One of the things that I really like about that is the work that I heard you doing is really around imagination refining. That right now we're not traveling, we're not going places. So this idea, what an exciting time to strengthen that part of ourselves that is stretching out. Where I have been, where I will go, those networks are energy networks. It's a really good time to build those out. It's like laying railroad tracks, but for our dreams instead. I want to acknowledge that we only have 2 minutes left. And I know, Kaya and Ryan and Claire and so many other people said that they were interested in sharing. And since we're running short on time, I want to call up a couple things. Jason shared his email and let's have you, Jason, if you don't mind typing it in one more time, just so it's near the bottom of the chat. If you make your self-portrait of wellness, and you are able to take a picture of it or a video, some way of sharing it, please send it to Jason. He will take this on for all of us. And then if you also do, there are 2 ways, right? You have to send it to Jason, but you also have to do the evaluation so that we have your info. And then we'll kind of get back with staff and figure out the most accessible, sensical way for us to gather those and to put them somewhere where we can all review them and see them. And maybe it's a living, growing thing that other people can contribute to. I'm always like let's chill on email. So I'm like, my vote is not to keep sending out emails, but probably to develop like a Google place or somewhere where we can just be adding those things so we can share them with each other. But because we are short on time, I'll say this. To me, the worst thing that could happen is for us to go back to normal. That is not what success looks like. This is a narrowing. This is a bottleneck, and it is uncomfortable and it is difficult, and we are packed in tight, and we are sometimes afraid, but we are also hopeful, and we are also visionaries, and we are also the healers. And if we are to come through this bottleneck to the other side and emerge, it is on us to show the rest of the world what that could look like. We are the visionaries. We are the ones who wear the cloth. We are the ones who can call others up to their higher selves, and together we can co-create what our new future will look like. So go forth, create your portraits of wellness, make others realize like that we do matter, our ideas of ourselves, our experiences matter, put it out into the world, send it to Jason, and be love, be well. Thank you, and good night.
Wow. Not a lot to follow up to that, Andrea. Thank you so much. You're wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Please connect with us via social when we'll share this video. We'll have plenty of more online virtual trainings as well. So we can't wait to connect with you all in the future. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, everybody. And have a wonderful weekend.
Farewell. I'll put my email in here too.
Thank you.
Everybody needs it. Feel free to reach out to me as well. Go get some of that sunshine if you still got it where you are.